Okay, I think we're about ready to get going today, right? Um, so we welcome everybody to the Force for Positive Change. And this is our session presented by the Small Business Development Center. I'm just going to share my screen with everyone so you can see our presentation for today. All right. So welcome everybody to Operational Pivots, Creating a Sustainable Business Model During a Crisis. So today I have with me Dan Brosman from the UW SBDC or Wisconsin SBDC at UW Eau Claire, and Luke Kempen from the Wisconsin SBDC at UW Eau Claire. I'm sorry, Dan Brosman from UW Oshkosh, and then Taylor Baker, who's a student intern that works with Dan. So I want to tell you, my name is Michelle Soames-Bucher. I am the director of the Small Business Development Center at UW-Madison. So today what I'm going to do is we'll tell you a little bit about our Wisconsin SBDC network, sort of what we did for COVID and COVID response, and then Luke's going to talk a little bit about operational pivots regarding finances. Dan and Taylor are going to talk a little bit about marketing, and then I will follow up with some information on what we did about planning and how crucial that can be. So if you aren't familiar with the Small Business Development Center network, we are a federally funded program that was founded by the Small Business Administration 40 years ago, over 40 years ago. And we're part of, like I said, a statewide national network. And statewide, we are located at almost all of the four-year universities. We have 13 centers across the state. And what we do is we help businesses start and grow. We provide no-cost confidential consulting and business education in the form of online and in-person classes. And we help with business planning, financial management, marketing and sales growth, management and strategic planning, and finance and capital access. So during the pandemic, the SBDC network provided a tremendous amount of response. In the state last year, we saw over 4,000 clients just on COVID-related topics. And we helped those clients receive $21.1 million in federal aid, $7.7 million in statewide aid, and many more dollars at the local level as well. We also had 1,700 people attend COVID-19 relief training programs, and we put up a comprehensive website page that received over 225,000 views to be able to provide small businesses with assistance and information. So our network as a whole really understands what it takes to pivot during a crisis. And so when we talked about this panel, one of the things that we wanted to do was just share some information with you about, what was the most effective for our small businesses. What did they do? Where did they go? What pieces of information were they seeking? And we decided to divide this up into three sections. So Luke Kempen's going to go first. Luke is our UW Eau Claire Center Director and sort of our all-around guru for things financial in our network. Luke is a CPA, and he can give you a little bit more information on his background and then share with you just some of the best practices and really helpful pivots that he saw with clients during the pandemic. So Luke, take it away.
All right, thanks, Michelle. Hopefully everyone can hear me all right. All right, yeah, as Michelle said, I am the director of the Wisconsin Small Business Development Center at UW Eau Claire. My background is a CPA. I've been in the business world, probably 35, 40 years now. I grew up in public accounting and then in the corporate world. And then I started my own business, grew that, sold it, and then started doing consulting work. I joined the SBDC in 2012 and have been doing consulting ever since. Most of the work that I do is financial projections and financial analysis type work. I probably work on about 200 projections a year. So it's kind of my toolbox that I use. And I like to look at things from a financial perspective. And I really want to always try to understand the financial picture of my clients. And obviously it's pretty natural because I am an accountant. So As we're looking at things, when we're really looking at the financial aspects of a business, really the way I look at things is that activity decisions drive financial results. So when we're looking at how a business generates revenue and sales, we really have to look at, well, what is the activity that that business is going to do or is doing that they can charge for, right? That they can generate revenue for. And so the decisions that we make about our activity and what we're doing every day really does drive those financial results. And a good example of that would be if I had my consulting business. If I didn't get out of bed in the morning, I didn't generate any revenue that day because I wasn't out building clients. I was laying in bed. So again, you can see on the how simplistic it really is. But when you really think about it, it's really an important analysis and an important thing to understand that when I'm trying to affect what's going on financially, I have to affect what's going on in the activity that I'm doing. So as we're looking at that, I think you need to ask yourself, is there something I can do differently that will benefit or increase revenue or lower expenses? So in a time of crisis or pandemic or things like that, or even when I'm looking at doing projections from a startup, I want to ask myself, well, what am I doing? And is this the right thing to do to generate revenue? And if I'm changing or starting something new or pivoting, I need to see if this is going to work financially. So I try to run the numbers and do projections, do budgets. Some people call them cash flow statements and things like that. Because if I can't get this to work on paper, chances are it's not going to work at all in the real world when I'm trying to launch it. And if I can get it to work on paper, that still doesn't mean that it's going to work in the real world, as many of us know. So as we're thinking about this concept of pivots, in my mind, a pivot is modifying, changing, or replacing an activity with a different activity. So during the pandemic, we all saw how restaurants pivoted, right? They all, or a lot of them, obviously, they either closed down or they decided to do takeout or something like that. Now, I've worked with lots of restaurants during the pandemic, and in talking with them, some of them actually had made more profit by doing takeout than they were when they had sit down. So some of them are commenting to me that they don't plan to go back to sit down, at least for a while, unless they need to. And we'll see how it evolves in that world as people want to get back out and stop eating at home or wherever they're eating right now. So we've had a clothing retailer. They had to close their store, so they started pushing more online. We all heard of the companies that were making PPE equipment and so on versus their regular products and so on. So a lot of pivots, and you can go out and research all about all these pivots. When I'm thinking about pivots, though, and how to manage a pivot, I'm really trying to think about how to apply the principles of managing a change or a business change of some sort. And it really involves defining the change and where are we now? Where are we going? Looking at that question and trying to figure out what do we want to do? And really during that process, I think we need to double down on engaging our employees. If we have employees, we really need to keep them posted on things and seek their ideas, because a lot of times these employees will have a lot better ideas than you may. I know when I had my business, I was always asking the employees. They were usually the ones on the front line and could tell me more about what was going on and what was needed. If you've got a lot of employees involved or a lot of people involved in the decision, you're going to need champions and agents and so on. So you're going to need to foster those people. And in any change, resistance is inevitable. Often this resistance really isn't logical, but it's often just emotional. People are resistant to change. But I think we need to try to leverage that resistance, because that resistance is energy, and we need to try to leverage it to help us move that change forward. And we talked about communication. And then in my mind, again, because I'm that financial guru, I'm always trying to do financial projections and try to project what I think is going to happen with that change financially. So I'm looking at the activity of that decision and trying to figure out how I can monetize that to generate revenue. And then I'm also looking at a change perhaps at how it's going to affect expenses and things like that. So as we're working through things, we all kind of understand that cash is really the fuel that runs our businesses. Like a car, if you run out of gas, you're not going anywhere. Well, in a business, if you run out of cash, you're probably not going anywhere. And I've got clients out there that are classic examples of that. They have very successful businesses. I have one in particular that's a startup, but they're burning through so much cash because they're growing so fast that they're trying to get lines of credit and getting bank financing, and it's kind of a vicious cycle. So it's a good thing that they're growing and expanding sales, but it's very difficult to put enough fuel in that business, enough cash in there to keep things going. Now, during a crisis, it becomes even more critical because as we saw during the pandemic, if we had to close our doors and we wanted to keep our employees, that was going to be a problem, right? We had no revenue to supply the cash we needed to pay those employees. So oftentimes we have to look at this cash a lot more closer in a crisis situation. And so that generally the tool that's used for that is cash flow projections and I know that's kind of a bad word, at least in the world we're in now, because we've ran some seminars on cash flow, and quite frankly, people, when you say cash flow, it just doesn't seem to resonate, or they don't want to do it for whatever reason. And I can understand it's complex. I'm an accountant, it's easy for me, and for others, it's not. So, but it's still, I think we just need to get it in simple terms. It doesn't have to be perfect, but really just looking at even the general major things of what's going on in your business as far as generating revenue, the major categories of expenses, and trying to see and predict what's going to happen there. So as we're looking at what affects our cash flow, we really need to look at, well, what's increasing revenue, or what will change revenue. So an increase in revenue increases typically cash collected. A decrease in expenses helps lower the cash being paid out. So those are the two major levers that we're trying to pull when we're trying to deal with cash flow. And then we're trying to budget that cash flow as we're moving forward. Now, during the pandemic, most of the businesses were somewhat blessed in the fact that, the government programs that came in, like the PPP loans, the SBA's EIDL, economic injury disaster loan programs that came in. And these loan programs, along with the Wisconsin We're All In grants, these programs are really meant to help supplement and to bring cash into the business, because these businesses, their revenue streams are slowed down. And if you think about the PPP loans, very few of us probably even remember what PPP stands for. It's Paycheck Protection Program. So the PPP loans really were there to help employers keep their employees on their payroll and keep them in their businesses so they would not lose them. Okay. Another thing when you're doing cash flow and looking at the levers to pull and trying to figure out what's going on is, I always like to talk about developing some key performance indicators, or KPIs. Really, these are activity levels that you can monitor that help you determine the success of your business. So for example, a restaurant might have a KPI of knowing that, hey, I have to serve 10 or 100 meals a day to cover the expenses to break even in my restaurant. So instead of monitoring the cash while I'm sitting there running my restaurant, I can start looking at the checks that came in, or the number of people that came into my restaurant every day. And I can kind of know just from those key performance indicator if I'm being successful, if I had a successful day. And if I start adding that up over the week, if every day I'm counting 50 people coming through the door instead of 100, I am now probably going to have some cash problems going forward. So it doesn't have to be complex. Look for that activity that you can monitor to help you manage and determine your success. When I was doing consulting, I may need to generate 10 billable hours a week for me to be able to feed my family and break even on that. So again, look for those key performance indicators and help them determine what you need to do. I want to walk through an example of a client that we had here during COVID. And this client came to us in March, on March 27th. I looked in our database today, and they came to us seeking a disaster loan. And the name of the company is called Chippewa Valley Painting. And so what we did is we started talking with them about what was going on. And they were very concerned about their employees, and they were struggling already to keep their employees. And as we got into the discussion, it was really kind of funny how the discussion changed fairly quickly. And they really said, you know what, Luke, what we really would like to do is we need to do something different in our business. It's just not what we want to do anymore. There's a lot of stress. What they were doing is 50% of their business was staining wood trim and for new homes. And 30% of their business was painting these new homes. So there was a lot of stress with that going on because they couldn't control their schedule a lot of times because they were at the mercy of other contractors. And it was just very difficult to manage their business. Now, they had about 20% of their business coming from painting existing cabinets and trim in existing homes. And when we started asking them some questions about this, they seemed passionate about that. And I said, well, why don't you share some of your financial information? Let me take a look at it. So we ran some financial projections or some analysis on what they've done in the past. And we found out that their profit margins were a lot higher in painting existing cabinets. And they had a lot less headaches and a lot less problems and things with that. So as we started talking about it, they said, you know what, we think now is the time to make this pivot and to do this now during the middle of the pandemic, because we're already going to see some issues. Let's just do this now and make it happen. So we talked about focusing 100% on painting those cabinets and doing that type of work. And we did projections on it, and we did find out based on the projections that we felt it would be a much more profitable for them and much easier and simpler business for them to run. So they pulled the trigger on it. They wound down their existing work doing staining. They sold off their other equipment, and they opened up a storefront right next to a paint supply company here in Eau Claire. And right now they are several months out on cabinet painting for existing homes. They're much more profitable. They're less stressed. And they're really considering adding on to staff and growing that part of the business. So it was kind of a complete pivot in this case. And so I think the moral of the story is to really focus on what you have in a pivot situation like they did. They had a really good enterprise going. They just couldn't focus on it because they were so dealing with the day-to-day fires of the other aspects of their business. So again, leverage it what you're good at and what they were passionate about. And these people did. They were very passionate about what they're doing, and they really enjoyed going into people's homes and things like that. So, and then cut your losses. Even if you love a business idea, sometimes it's not the best, and you have to just let it go. And then ultimately, though, you have to kind of focus on where the profit is, because in order for you to be sustainable, you still have to make a profit. So, all right. I talked a lot. I'm going to turn it over to back to Michelle again. So.
Yeah, thanks, Luke. I think some of the really good key takeaways there were, understanding the role cash plays in your business, understanding the burn rate of that cash, understanding where cash is flowing through, key performance indicators, doing simple analysis, of your business model. Does it still work? Especially when there's a crisis. I think your example, Luke, was really great. I mean, if they hadn't taken the time to look at the two and realize one aspect of their business was way more profitable, it would have been very difficult for them to make that decision. There would have always been that push and pull if they hadn't done the financial analysis. So, kind of good key takeaways. And, when people can do it during a crisis, you can do it when it's not a crisis. They probably saved their business model by making the pivot. They weren't going to have to go through some of those difficult times. So thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Dan and Taylor. And Dan, you can give a little bit of your background. They've got some pretty exciting things happening at UW Oshkosh this year, and they've really helped a lot of businesses with digital marketing and kind of what that role played during this crisis. So go ahead, Dan.
Great. Thank you, Michelle. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dan Brosman. I'm with the Small Business Development Center at UW Oshkosh, and with me is Taylor Baker. Taylor's a student at UWO, and she's also an intern in our digital marketing clinic. So I also coordinate activities for our Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation, which is focused on supporting students and startups through different programming and activities. But within the Small Business Development Center, I'm really focused on marketing support for our clients, assisting with startup operations, and of course, many other challenges that businesses may be facing. But our focus for today is to narrow in on digital marketing. And to start off with a kind of a quick overview of digital marketing, it really involves all the marketing methods that are conducted through like an electronic device, such as your phone or your computer. Organizations may choose to have a website. They may have emails that they send through an email newsletter, a blog, social media presence, but it's everything that entails your online marketing strategy. And it goes hand in hand with traditional marketing. So digital marketing is important for any organization, big or small, pandemic or no pandemic. And it's growing, and COVID has definitely escalated this trend. Nowadays, most consumers, they start their research online before they land at a specific website, and they start it through a search engine such as Google. So that involves your search engine optimization and ranking for different keywords, and then that can become very advanced as well. Some quick stats: 74% of consumers rely on social media to guide their purchasing decisions. For example, in Oshkosh, they started a Support Oshkosh group on Facebook, which is now up to 11,000 plus members. But it's a way for small business owners to share a little bit about what they're doing, specials that they might be having. I often see it when I'm looking for a Friday fish fry for some takeout. But you get a direct notification, and it's a neat area to support businesses and the community. And there's a lot of communities that have similar types of groups, but they're using social media, and customers are becoming influenced when they're making a purchasing decision. 41% of brick and mortar buyers read reviews before making a purchase. And we all know this. I mean, there's Yelp, there's Facebook reviews. People go and they leave positive and negative reviews. So it's important to have a brand presence that's online, that's consistent, and that's somewhere where people can go to find out more information about you. So like I said, COVID really escalated the need for people to be online. It caused many businesses to pivot. They needed to quickly move their physical operations to an e-commerce store, or they needed to really focus on doing Facebook Lives and selling goods, or inform customers of doing their curbside pickup or takeout options. So digital marketing is important no matter what. And in fact, we started this digital marketing clinic, and it's funded through the CARES Act funds that we received through the government. And it was started as a result of a pivot. And what I mean by that is Kathy Fredrickson, who's an instructor in our College of Business. She teaches digital marketing coursework at UW Oshkosh. When the pandemic started last March, she was teaching a course and quickly shifted everyone to a virtual format, but she also realized that small businesses needed some support. So for her course project and deliverable that the students needed to work on, she created a project called the Digital Marketing SOS Project. And it really helped to involve small businesses in and bring them into the class and put students who are being trained and educated in digital marketing with these small businesses, paired them up with them to help them and support them through different strategies and SEO strategies, social media help, and anything else that was related to some of the digital marketing needs that they may have. So then Kathy and I connected, and we received some dollars from the state. And we thought, well, wouldn't it be great to continue this support for our small businesses, within the community and statewide? Even before the pandemic, a lot of the clients that I've been meeting with needed some digital marketing support or some way to have some help with improving their online presence. So we started the Digital Marketing Clinic, just opened in February. And what this is it's a no-cost resource for small businesses throughout the entire state of Wisconsin to receive help in digital marketing, whether it's social media strategy and implementation, or search engine optimization support, or website audits. But right off the bat, we received incredible demand. So there was a dire need for a resource like this. And in 48 hours, we had 25 plus applications. We're currently approaching 70 applications. We have a team of 4 student interns that are trained. They've gone through the coursework that is taught by Kathy, our managing director. And they're serving as consultants to these small businesses as they work on their digital marketing needs. So Taylor is an intern in the Digital Marketing Clinic. She was one of our first hires. She's been a rock star, really helping to set the foundation and get things started. So I want to have Taylor talk a little bit about the biggest needs that she's been seeing in the applications that have come through, and share a little bit about an example of a project that they recently completed.
Okay, so like Dan said, we've had almost 70 clients apply so far. And on that application, we have a whole list of 10 different services they can choose from. And out of all those services, these are some of the biggest needs we have seen so far. So first is social media, and that includes the implementation and schedule development we offer. And implementation, sometimes clients just don't really know what to post. They don't know what's engaging content, not sure if their profile is optimized. So we make strategic recommendations based off of that, tell them what to post, give them a good content mix, that sort of thing. And then the schedule development, whether they're B2C or B2B, we go in and we do some research and make a schedule for their business so they can post consistently to get the highest engagement possible, to really engage with their customers. So one of the most recent and probably biggest projects we've had with social media is with an eyewear clinic in downtown Appleton. You know, they have great products. They had a great tone set on their social media. They just didn't quite know what to post or when to post. So we went in and we gave them a good content mix. We gave them some examples, made sure they were following the 60-30-10 content rule. And then we also made them a schedule because they didn't really have a schedule and they were just kind of posting randomly, which can throw off your metrics. So we made a whole schedule for them and they've had great returns so far. So that's been awesome. The second need we have seen has been a website audit. So clients maybe want help with the functionality of their website, the navigation, they want more visual appeal, that sort of thing. So we kind of look over all their landing pages and make strategic recommendations so that users can more easily navigate that and even find them. And a second big part of the website audit is keywords. So if you don't know what a keyword is, it's the phrase or words that users put in the search bar. And if you have those keywords on your website, then Google will rank you higher in the search engine. So keywords are a really, really big, important part of helping drive traffic to your website. So there's a few places on the website they have to be, whether it's the URL, the alternative text, headings, even the body paragraphs. And without those, no one's really going to find your page. So that's been another huge demand we had.
Perfect. Thank you, Taylor. And like I said, there are so many different needs that businesses have when it comes to digital marketing. And really, our team has done such a great job of hitting the ground running to identify these needs and kind of create a project scope and to work with the clients to help them truly understand the strategies that are being implemented or the deliverables that are being offered to them at post-project. So businesses can apply for the Digital Marketing Clinic. Applications are currently open and you can apply right on our website, wisconsinspdc.org. And in the menu, there's a services tab and you can hover over initiatives and you'll see the Digital Marketing Clinic there. But we also want to leave you with some quick tips to getting started with digital marketing or improving your digital marketing. First off, have an online presence that your customers expect. There's a lot of businesses that are using a ton of different platforms when really it might not be needed because it's not where your customers are. For example, if your customers aren't on TikTok, the latest platform that everyone, all the youth are on, it might not make sense for you to be on there. Same with Twitter. If there's not a need to really interact with that type of audience, maybe focus on Facebook and a website. Of course, I highly recommend setting up a Google My Business profile. That's no cost. And that's the little side profile that you'd see when you Google search a company, and it would show up on the right side of the Google page. And that's no cost, and it allows customers to leave reviews, but see your contact information, photos. So just basic information about you as a business. Develop a consistent brand across all your marketing platforms. Use the same fonts, color scheme. This creates consistency. I've seen a lot of different clients that have kind of been mumbo jumbo, just kind of throwing different things together, but it can turn some customers away. But it's just that inconsistency is not good for brand alignment and your marketing efforts. Use new features and emerging platforms. What I mean by that is when Facebook launched the stories feature, or Instagram put the live up, use those features. Those platforms favor you and they want to promote you and help you be successful when you're using that. They push out a notification to your followers when you're going live. And almost every platform now has live options. So if you're comfortable doing it, I highly should suggest using those features. Same with the emerging platforms. Like I was saying before, TikTok, has blown up in this last year. Again, if it makes sense for you to be on that platform, great, explore it. Be a first mover versus being late to the game when everyone else is on it. There are so many free tools available to business owners and to anyone. Canva makes graphic design easy. It's a great way to get some nice professional looking images and graphics for your social media profiles. Hootsuite allows you to schedule posts out in advance. So instead of trying to remember to post every single day, spend 20 minutes on Monday morning scheduling out your week of posts, and it can shoot it out to all of your different platforms that you may be on. Google Analytics should be a must for your website. It's a free tool. It's fairly simple to connect to most website platforms, but it allows for you to pull some really valuable data about your customers and visitors. And Google Trends is often used for identifying different keywords and understanding what people are typing in on Google. You can find out how many searches are happening, in a specific time duration for a set of keywords. You compare it with others, find out where these are ranking in different geographic locations. So there's a lot out there that you can use. And of course, you don't have to use everything, but it's there and it's nowhere low cost. So with that being said, that's our digital marketing in a nutshell. So I encourage you to explore the Digital Marketing Clinic. We'd love to chat with you and tell you more about all the great things we're doing here.
Yeah, thanks, Dan and Taylor. One of the things I would say is when you're in a time when you're having to pivot, this is so important. A lot of times we get caught up in the operations of the pivot and forget to do the marketing. I can remember early in the pandemic, people trying to go get takeout. You go to the restaurant and it's closed, or their Facebook page says it's open, but their Google My Business says it's closed, right? So just making sure that you're being consistent, such a good message here as well. And then making sure that your branding is also consistent: fonts, color, style, logos. The Digital Marketing Clinic is a fantastic idea. I think one of the hurdles, and you guys can speak to this, that we hear, and Luke, you can weigh in if you want, is I don't know where to start and I don't know how much it should cost.
Yep, absolutely. That's spot on. And that's something we certainly try to help with is we realize a lot of the small businesses and entrepreneurs that we interact with also don't have the budget to afford agency level service work. And they really just want to get started. So that's a goal that we have is helping you to get your footing and get started in the world of digital marketing.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. So, one of the things that our center at UW-Madison noticed, and it piggybacks on both of what Luke and Dan said, were that lots of things had to change. And you can see just by these two presentations, there's a lot in there, right? Just sitting and doing financial forecasting for the future in normal times is difficult. Figuring out how to adjust and create new digital platforms, upgrade your website, perhaps maybe even adding an e-commerce in normal times is difficult. And then you want to throw on top of it that we're in a global pandemic and it's necessary for you to stay afloat. That almost seemed insurmountable for a lot of folks. And so one of the things that the Small Business Development Center Network is really, really good at is rooting people back in planning. And you've heard it from both of these people ahead of time, right? Just this understanding that running a business takes planning. And if you plan, you can help mitigate the risk of owning a business. It's risky to own a business. It always has been, it always will be. And trying to figure out how you can plan for your future is really important. So what we saw at UW-Madison in those early stages were that businesses were reacting. It was all reactionary. And this chaos created lots of opportunity. Luke presented a really positive piece of opportunity, but for other people, that opportunity was so broad they didn't know what to do next. Right. So should I take my restaurant and turn it into a food cart? Should I do takeout? Should I start selling online? Should I publish my menu? Shouldn't I? All kinds of different decisions. And so what we tried to do with folks was bring them back down into a sense of, okay, how do you get a game plan and how do you work through that? And we think when you're going through a time of pivot, that putting a plan together is actually really important. We recommend that you work on a rolling 3-month plan. Right? Especially right now. It's really hard to tell. It was really hard last year at this time to tell what 2021 in April was going to look like. So as we started recommending this, a lot of our clients said, I just don't even know where to start. I'm just overwhelmed by all of it. So our center created a guide called Navigating the New Normal. And this response guide, we put it together in the summer. We had it translated into Spanish and we gave it away for free, and there's no wrong way to use it. So I just want to talk a little bit about how do you think about planning when things are so chaotic, and what are some ways that you can kind of root yourself back in those planning phases. So this particular guide, we divided into 3 sections, and it covers 6 functional areas of business. So it's react, reevaluate, and refocus. Those are the 3 sections. And then the 6 functional areas are financials, operations, employees, customers/marketing, products and services, and leadership. So one of the things we asked people to do was just spend a little bit of time when you've had something chaotic happen to you to figure out what you did in that reaction phase. So in this guide in particular, what we did is we put lists and lists of things that you may or may not have done. What we heard from clients is that they made so many decisions they couldn't even remember it. And I don't know if Luke and Dan, if you had this from clients, is they have very little memory of last year at this time. A lot of them were like, I didn't know what end was up. I was making calls, making decisions so quickly. So we spend some time thinking about what happened, reflecting on those early days. A lot of our clients really had to make some difficult decisions, whether it was around employees or closing parts of their business, so forth and so on. And they were hyper focused on maybe some of the decisions they perceived as negative and not really recognizing all of the good things that they did that set themselves up for success to be here today. So spending some time being able to understand what it is that you did was really important. So that particular section, there's a set of check boxes just to keep things simple. And then there's some reflection boxes where you can do some writing. Were you happy with the decisions that you made? Would you make a different decision today with more information? So forth and so on. The middle section really roots people back in best practices, which is something else that we think is important for your operational success for your business model. What are the best practices for your industry? And that's really what Luke was talking about when he was talking about financial management. Understanding cash flow is important as a best practice. And, and Dan mentioned it as well. You don't have to be on every platform. A best practice is understanding where your customers are and what platform they need to connect with, right? So we asked you to go back and revisit in each one of those 6 functional areas some of the best practices for business. Best practices save you time, effort, and energy. If you know what the best practices are in a particular functional area, for example, around your employees, if you know that modifying these job descriptions is really important, and you realize, like, I don't even have job descriptions, then I think then I think, one of the things that you should be doing is thinking about like, okay, I need to put some job descriptions in. I can't ask people to do everything all the time. They're going to leave. So in that section, we're asking you to not only revisit them, but then we're giving you an opportunity to get some education. So we link out to different resources that you can get more information on, whether it's a class or an article you can read or a video you can watch. And then the third section is the refocus. That's really the goal planning worksheet. So we're asking you to say, what do I do really, really well? What problems do I have in my business that I know of? And what are some things I want to be working on in the next few months? And again, we're working on a rolling 3-month basis in a crisis. Normally, I would say, make a year-long plan. But right now, we're looking at this in a much more compressed time frame. It's a lot of work to do planning when you have so many things going on, but the planning also helps you organize your thoughts. You can do anything as a business owner, but you can't do everything. And being able to do things that make sense and that use your dollars wisely, your resources wisely, that connect well with your customers and keep you here and keep you open and functioning are what's most important. So, and it also solidifies that business model if you have a good plan for it. You can make sure that you're strong. You can make sure that you're doing things like connecting back with your bank, your lenders, making sure that you're reaching out to your customers, making sure that your vendor relationships are strong, making sure that you're going to be here next year and then the years to come. So rooting your business back in planning is a good way to organize your thoughts when you're hit with a crisis. And when you've had to make a lot of pivots very quickly, it's important to take some time and stop. I think everybody knows that phrase that, you can hand somebody a fish or you can teach them to fish. This is the teach them to fish, right? Like about your own business. How can I actually learn how to operate a business versus just continually to go and grab whatever the one thing is that will make my pain better for this particular day. The goal with small businesses is to be here into the future. And so that's what we really try to work on. So those are just a few of the things that we wanted to share with you today around, how do you manage operational pivots when there's a crisis? We'd be happy to take some questions, if there's any in the chat, or we can, and I've got a few more things that I would be willing to ask Dan and Luke as well. So. All right, let's see here. We do have a question in the Q&A box, and one of them was, should I contact the closest SBDC within their region, or is there any benefit to to reaching out to another region? And Dan answered this question, and what we always say is, if you want some help, we're located regionally for a reason, right? And so it's best to reach out in your region because we can connect you with key stakeholders all across the region. So whether you're looking for, specific assistance from a lender or specific assistance with a economic development organization, we've got those contacts and we'd be happy to help you. We're also here to help you with things like, Luke mentioned all of the different loan programs that have been out there, the Paycheck Protection Program, which is still open, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, the We're All In grants are out, the Shuttered Venue grants are out. We may not have the answer for you, but we'll do our best to try to find you an answer. So we're happy to help then. I think reaching out when there's difficulties like this is important. We applaud those 4,000 and some people that we helped over the pandemic, because we can't possibly know it all as a business owner. And I would think that it's important for us to be able to seek help. So we have another question in the chat that says, how often do you recommend an organization, especially a nonprofit, provide updates to its constituents during this time? Dan, I'm going to let you take this one.
Sure. Yep. That's a great question. Especially during this time, I would keep in communication as much as possible. Now, you don't want to send them an email every single day, but having some sort of weekly communication to share updates about what you're doing, any new changes that are happening. It's important to help them understand what's happening within the organization. And it can be done through a very simple email newsletter. that can be sent out in a mass way to all of your contacts. Constant Contact, MailChimp are two that you can get for no cost. And then they have some paid versions. But I would keep in touch with them as much as possible. Keep the communication strong. We've certainly done that, and that was kind of a pivot internally at our SBDC at UW Oshkosh. Is last March, once everything started to turn virtual, we opened up our lines of communication, and we're sending almost weekly, bi-weekly emails to all of our clients, informing them of all the changes that were happening with the different loan programs, just because it was so fluid. But if you're using an email newsletter tool and they don't want to hear the updates, they can certainly unsubscribe too. So at least you give them the option.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would piggyback on top of this as things have changed now. Tone is important. At first it was, here's the information, and now making sure that as we're coming into different phases of this crisis is just being able to reflect the phase that you're in as well too. Somebody said to me the other day, I'm de-COVIDing my website, which I thought was an interesting choice, but they're starting to take down some of the stuff that maybe isn't as relevant as it was 6 months ago, 10 months ago. We have another question here. It says, Dan and Taylor, do you have any business social media accounts that you suggest following or watching for best practices when it comes to marketing?
Sure, that's another good question. Taylor, did you have any that come to mind right now?
I know one we always reference here at the DMC for B2C businesses is Chubbies. I think their tone and their posting is great, and they have a good content mix. So if you're a B2C business, I would definitely follow what they do for some best practices.
That's great. And a good website that I follow is adespresso.com. And I'll put that in the Q&A. But there's a lot of good tips and blogs that they push out, as well as examples for digital ads, if that's something you decide to pursue. They show you different ways to design your ad, best practices when it comes to the content. And there's many other resources out there as well. But that's a particular resource that I found to be very helpful.
One of the things.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say one of the things that I would just piggyback on all of this is if you are not skilled at some of these in some of these digital marketing areas, one of the things I would recommend is reaching out for help. You don't have to be an expert in everything, and so I think it would be really great for you to be able to get some help from the digital marketing clinic or hire a professional, rather than try to teach yourself all of these skills, especially during these times when you have so many things to do. So don't be afraid to reach out and spend a little money. We have another one here that says, while you consult with for-profits, would you be able to provide advice on the breadth of options that would be available to support nonprofits? So one of the things that was asked earlier is, does the Small Business Development Center specifically work with nonprofits? And we are charged to work with for-profit businesses. We have a lot of great resources on our websites and in our classes that we have that are available to nonprofit businesses as well. And so, feel free to use our website and our classes that we have available as well for nonprofits. And, if there's a general question about where do I find a resource in our area, I'm positive that any one of my colleagues across the state would definitely answer those questions for you.
Yeah, and I'll chime in too, Michelle, especially on the COVID loan programs and those programs that are out there right now. A lot of these programs this is kind of new to the SBA, because the SBA generally didn't work with non-for-profits, but they opened up the PPP loan programs, EIDL loan programs to nonprofits. So the line's gotten a little bit blurred because we are helping people with our nonprofits with PPP loan questions and EIDL loan questions and things like that too. And if you think about it, a nonprofit is just a different source of revenue when it really comes right down to it, because a lot of what you're doing, whether you're managing a for-profit business or not-for-profit, you still need to watch cash, you need to watch expenses, you still need to do planning and projections and things like that. So those are all things that are common to both for-profits and nonprofits. So certainly a lot of these things cross over.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I see that by my clock, it is 2:50 and our session is ending. The next session is going to be starting at 3 o'clock, listening to a talk from John and Tasha Morgridge, along with WEDC Secretary Missy Hughes. So I want to thank everybody for joining me and thank my colleague Luke Kempen from UW Eau Claire and Dan Brosman from UW Oshkosh and his student intern Taylor Baker. We really appreciate having you all here with us today. So